All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Uh, we are having probably the heaviest downpour of this season outside, due to which some of our panelists were not able to join or have been late in joining. But the topic today that we are discussing, uh, the role of schools in building resilient students, in raising students to be resilient. Now, this topic, when I was told to prepare for this topic, that I have to moderate it, I was thinking of some examples from my own school days where this word resilience was probably used. And, I couldn't recall where explicitly this word resilience was used. Uh, uh, you know, some of the examples, and I'll ask the panelists to give us their perspective of what they mean by developing resilient students. But while I was preparing, you know, resilience in students includes that, accepting that you are wrong and, correcting it. I'll give you an example. Panelists, I want to understand, since all of you are from school, have you ever come across students in your school who are very good at studies but are also the baddest boys of their batches? Have you come across any students till now? If not, I was that boy. So, that was the closest you could have the immunity that the president of India has in school. And but, nobody, if somebody used to complain about me, no teacher used to believe, because I was so good in studies. But one day, one of my teachers understood this, and she called and told me that, बेटा पढ़ाई कर लेगा, नंबर ले आएगा, सक्सेसफुल हो जाएगा, लेकिन लोग साथ नहीं रहेंगे इस चंचल स्वभाव के साथ. एंड आई रियलाइज दैट कहाँ मेरी गलती थी. Then resilience also means adapting to change. I was in class 12, my physics teachers, he told that for 14 years you have been in a net where you've been filled with affection, love, care. Now that you are about to enter college, that all will change. So panelists, I want to understand that what is the interpretation when we say that we have to build resilient students, and how important it has become in the last 2 years based on your experiences with students. Kanakji, if you would like to start.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for this wonderful topic. And not only is there a heavy downpour outside, there's a heavy downpour inside, because everyone wants to participate, which is a great, great thing. And I'm looking forward to questions from the audience. We are just in the middle of the session before lunch, so I'm sure it's going to be very interesting. The question that you raise, the first thing that comes to my mind is that, there are a lot of stereotypes, Arjun, that is there. That, when you said that a typically good student versus a naughty student, typically in our minds, a good student is one who gets high marks, and a person who does all their assignments in the classroom, etc. I don't think that stereotype should remain. I don't think that marks define a student, and we really need to, as educators, we need to break this mindset that marks define a student. I don't think that we also need to fall into that stereotype that, oh, there is a Dhoni and a Tendulkar who has succeeded, or there's an Amitabh Bachchan who has succeeded. I don't think we need to put people into those pockets. We need to come out of that as a first guiding point. We need to understand as to where the education system has evolved from. It has been designed to be from the industrial age, a factory system whereby students would be studying to deliver a particular amount in the factories, in the workplaces. We graduated to the technology age, and today we are in the social age. So a lot of the work that our students of today's time would be doing would be a lot of social work. And social, I don't necessarily mean social network. I don't necessarily mean social work and social service. But with people, with empathy, I think that is very important to know that. So once we have that mindset going forward, resilience in a student would be determined by the kind of agility a student has, adaptability a student has. I think these are the important things going forward.
Right. Thank you, Kanakji. Abhishek ji, if you would like to share your comments on this.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Resilience, if I understand, is ability to take shocks and still pursue, be hit, but still are ready to fight on. That is what life is, and that is what we want to develop in students also. And it is a habit, or I would say ability, that is requires to be developed, and that doesn't happen in a day or two. It takes consistent effort on the part of school, on the part of parents, that the child starts developing. And I think this is a major problem, if I would say, in all the millennials, the kids who are born, much around say 2000 and beyond. If you look at their lives, I think most of the things, they have been getting it very easy, if I would say.
Right.
Parents try to give whatever the child desires, and as much as possible. The parents feel that if I have lost out something, my child should not face the same problem. That is a big tendency which we have. In that case, what happens? They start getting things easy and are not sure how to deal with things when it is not easy. And remember, in life, anything that we value never comes easy.
Right.
Nobody appreciates you if you had a breakfast, except your mom, of course. But otherwise, nothing. If you want to do something that you yourself will value, will require perseverance. So resilience and perseverance are two same part of the thing. And if you have to develop that, that requires an ecosystem in which the child is put. That requires the child to be consistently going through that process.
Right.
Failing enough number of times. That is the first part. Let the child go, let the child fail. The problem now with the society or the school system, if I would say also, is that the society which is outside has become worse than what it was earlier. And the way we are preparing has become even worse. We are preparing them less rather than getting them underprepared, because we are pampering everybody. We are giving participation certificates to everybody. Now, where is that failure that child is learning? So unless we start working on those things, these kids will be taught, grow up, and they will believe that, okay, everything we can achieve. Every time we will get some participation certificate or something or like that. So then when the real world comes out, there's nobody to give you that. Nobody cares for you that. And you're not trained to handle that. That is where the problem is. So I think it is, absolute must and a great disservice to these kids if we are not teaching them resilience, not teaching them perseverance, because otherwise they will have very difficult time. All the mental problems, all those things that we are seeing among kids is because of this only. They're not being trained to accept failure, learn from failure, and fight again.
Right. Thank you, Abhishek ji. What just Abhishek ji just said, I just remembered a video that goes viral on the internet. There's a man sitting on the window seat of the airplane, and beside him there's a woman and her daughter. So as the plane was about to take off, the woman says, "Would you allow my daughter to sit just for the takeoff part on the window seat, because she really loves that part?" And that man first nods very, with a smirk smile, and then says, "Teach your daughter a valuable lesson. You don't get everything as easily outside in the real world." Amol ji, if you would like to share as to what your interpretation of resilience is, and then we'll talk to Avinash ji.
I jumped the queue here. Okay. Yeah, so I think what Mr. Abhishek talked about is how children handle the F word, failure, not what you're thinking. So I think, this is manifesting in many forms, and we all know that we are preparing children for a world which does not exist currently. And if we can't change the world, then we need to change the way we teach and how we parent our children. So whether it's a physical way, children are getting less sleep. So are they resilient? Are their bodies physically resilient? Kind of food they're eating, choices. It's the emotional part of dealing with failure, understanding that this is not the end. So you could have, so schools have to structure a lot of things into their program. And it's not just, as everybody say, just putting a post, as easy as putting up a poster in our corridor or talking in the assembly that you need to be resilient. And I think, for one, COVID has taught us, those organizations and individuals who were resilient, who could figure out how to survive these 2 years, if that hasn't taught us that we need to teach our children to be resilient, then nothing else can teach us. Those organizations which survived, those people who came out even buying houses by just putting YouTube videos and Instagram, selling stuff on teachers who lost their jobs, suddenly went on Instagram, and today they are the same teachers asking for 3 times the salary because itna tum Instagram pe kama leti ho. That shows resilience of that individual's person. So I think as a society, if we don't wake up to this topic, and it's interesting that this topic was chosen, is that we need to prepare children for that. And what's the point of a child being a topper in a school and then not being able to handle failure? And why do suicides happen in IITs, AIMS, and children who are considered, as you said, were brilliant as well. So it's all that, that resilience is something which is underappreciated, but I think after 2 years, if we cannot learn this and figure out as a society how do we incorporate into our schools, into our parenting methods, then children will be losing out.
Right, thank you, Amolji. Avinash ji, I skipped the queue because now I'll come to fear of failure, which Amolji also pointed out. You know, you've interacted with toppers, people who prepare for competitive exams. And, you know, I'll just share one of the anecdotes. When the UPSC declares the result, and when people of my fraternity goes to these toppers' houses in the evening, you know, no matter how successful you are in life, एक देखकर लगता है कि लाइफ में कुछ रह गया, एक बार अटेम्प्ट दे लेते हैं. You know, the scenes in my living room with my parents on the result day are very vivid. They don't say anything, but they still say, अभी उम्र बची है, दे ले attempt, अभी दे ले attempt. But, you know, my point is, society gives validation because, only through success, if you are successful. And what we are talking about is that probably the students who traverse through that journey, you know, through that journey, they learn a lot. Success, failure is other thing, but the path that they choose for preparing for those examinations and what they acquire in that journey, you know, it helps them somewhere or the other. And, you know, at Businessworld, we engage very closely with the startup community. And all of the senior IAS officers I've interviewed till now in the ministry, they said the number one reason why the startup boom was not happening for a lot of years was that people are, you know, they fear failure. So, Avinash ji, please share your experiences on how we can tackle it and how we as society should have that mindset that we celebrate the journey as well.
So you want me to talk about failure or, you know?
Tackling fear of failure.
So, thank you, Businessworld. And, you know, before I start, I come from a different perspective. I don't come from a school background. So basically, whatever I would be talking about would be from a parent's perspective. Now, handling fear is like just anything else. It's like one of the emotions. And, you know, fear can have two meanings. One can have, you know, one meaning can be, you know, forget everything and run, and the another meaning can be face everything and rise. So like every coin, fear has two meanings, and it all depends upon the mindset. As Arjun was saying, that in the last 15 years, I've interacted and interviewed with hundreds of toppers of different competitive examinations, and I was always surprised, you know, while I was working in the education sector, that why is that somebody tops? Why is that somebody tops almost effortlessly, and why is that there are lakhs and lakhs of students who, despite burning midnight oil, ragad ke, ghis ke mar gaye, and forget about topping, they are not even able to clear the examination. What is that which makes them click? And you know, I spoke to lots and lots of topper, be it IIT JEE or be it NEET or be it UPSC or any other competitive examination. And you know, after 4 or 5 years, I realized, you know, I've spent time in toppers' home also. We would talk about parents' perspective later on in this session. कि ऐसा क्या होता है जब मैं you know, I was born in 1970s, and at that point of time there were houses जहाँ पे ये समझा जाता था कि इस घर से सारे टॉपर ही निकलेंगे. इस घर में भेज देते थे हम अपने बच्चे को कि अपने चाचा के ताऊ के पास जाके रह ले, वहाँ पे बच्चा निकल ही जाता है, यहाँ जो जाता है as if the place is something. So parents का क्या role आता है? But coming back, after interacting and speaking to toppers, I realized that it actually boiled down to 3 basic things. The first was mindset. If you have got a winner mindset, everything looks easy and interesting. There is no fear of failure. Fear is my friend. The second differentiating factor between topper and average student was habits. It looks easy, but if you are able to build habits right from the childhood, being focused, organized, disciplined, automatically becomes a way of life. And the third differentiating factor between topper and average students was the way they studying techniques. Unfortunately, most of our kids spend thousands and thousands of hours studying all different kind of subjects, but we hardly spend some time in learning how should we go about learning. Learning is an art, learning is a science, and like every other sport, it has got some rules. If you play the game of learning following those rules in mind, it can be as interesting, as exciting like any other sport. But unfortunately, हमारे सिस्टम में जो हमें समझाया जाता है, जो कि मैंने समझा और मैंने अपने बच्चों को भी वही समझाया कि बेटा रगड़ो, घिसो, वो ही एक तरीका है. So that is what I would say. And being resilient, you know, I think is extremely important. I don't think there is any debate required about this, and last 2 years have been tough, and we should understand and appreciate that our kids are living in a very challenging and difficult world. They are constantly bombarded with information. They are living in a world which is full of distraction. They are living in a world which is full of fear of missing out. They are living in a world which is of instant gratification. कल मेरी daughter इस चीज से परेशान हो रही थी कि पिज़्ज़ा वाला 5 मिनट लेट हो गया. पिज़्ज़ा वाला 5 मिनट लेट हो गया. They are living in a world wherein they have become so comfortable speaking to computers that they don't want to speak to human beings. मैं अपने बच्चों को कहता हूँ कि अपने दोस्त से बात कर लो. नहीं पापा पहले टेक्स्ट करेंगे, पहले व्हाट्सएप कॉल, पहले व्हाट्सएप मैसेज करेंगे. We don't want to speak to anybody. So in these contexts and post-COVID, wherein social distancing, isolation, online classes, these have been very heavy on the students, and we have to understand, realize, and accept these fact that kids were not prepared. हम 50 साल के होने के बाद, and after getting all success in life, we are not able to handle this. वो बच्चे बेचारे कैसे handle, उनके पास तो कोई framework ही नहीं है, किस तरीके से इन चीज़ों को handle कर सकते हैं. So I strongly feel that socio-economic well-being, socio-emotional well-being of the kids is the biggest challenge, not in front of our country, but in front of the entire world. And it is the time that wherein we should understand and realize this fact. Last thing which I would like to just add, based on whatever observation I had as a parent and as an academician traveling across the country, is that if you would have asked me this question before 2000, I would have said that IQ is more important than EQ. Post 2000, I would have said that EQ is as important as IQ. But if you would ask me this question in 2022 or post-COVID, I would definitely say EQ is many times more important than IQ.
Right. Thank you, Avinash ji. You talked about framework, and Kanak, I'll like to start it with you because you're all from the school fraternity. What's the framework that you adopt in teaching students to be resilient in the classroom? Probably some of the activities that you can share, or the strategies that are deployed.
Sure. First of all, I don't think you can teach resilience. I think you can experience it. I think that's more important, to provide opportunities for students to be innovative, be experimental, learn about life. I think these are important experiential aspects that are there in the classroom that you need to do. I'm not very comfortable about putting compartmentalizing students and telling that this is a good student, that's a bad student. See, the problem with our education system, and I'm probably responsible for it as well. The problem with our system is that, we focus on weaknesses. We don't focus on weaknesses. What we do is that if you're good at maths, I ignore that. But, if you're not good at English, I'm going to reprimand you for it. I don't incentivize you enough for being good at something. I penalize you, and I red flag that. I think, those are the things that I'm taking out of the system. We try to focus on the strengths of the student, the kind of likings or dislikes they may have. We look at providing experiences to the students, opportunities to the students. This can happen through a lot of projects. This can happen through a lot of collaboration. Collaboration is one of my favorite words because it talks about communication, it talks about teamwork, it talks about leadership skills. I think that's all very important. And instead of just subjects, you should look at a more interdisciplinary approach, whereby students get access to application, not just text and theory. Because if you get stuck with text and theory, essentially you are going back to the rote method, which has its strengths, but it's not the end all and be all of the education system.
Right. Thank you, Kanak ji. Abhishek ji, if you would like to share some of the strategies that are deployed in your school.
Sir, I think we have to think as the overall ecosystem that the school should provide, to bring I would say bring failure as a simple regular thing, or rather not a bad thing, if I would say that. And that should start from the top. Just like discipline in any organization starts from the top, this also must start from the top. And if the top man is ready to accept his failure in front of everybody, that gives them a lot of confidence. Because the top man generally cannot be fired, so at least he has that liberty to accept. And the others start getting confidence then. And it takes, because I am part of the management, so it's a little difficult to trust the management. It takes time. Over a period of time, people will realize that, okay, what they are saying is correct. And then you start seeing that others also come up with their failures and are open about it. Let's face it, nobody wants to fail. This is the reality. But if you're providing that, psychological safety to the teachers, first of all, because what teachers are experiencing is what will be transferred to the students also. So if you're able to do that, it's all right. If you make mistake, there are ways to correct it. Then they will open up, first of all. That is very important. So unless there is the structural support for that, that will not happen. So what we have done is, in all departmental meetings which happen, I said, you should mention one strategy which you implemented in the class that did not work out. That is all right. It is permissible to make mistakes. Over period, now it has started working, people share. Two benefits come. First, of course, others don't implement it because they know that this is not working. And second, that people are receptive to having done something which has not worked well. And it started with first me saying that, okay, we planned something we wanted to do. Let me give you the real example. I was concerned about the health of the teachers, so I thought maybe we should get a treadmill in the school so that, people can at least find some time and, walk these things. But there was a system error, I would say, because if you don't provide that specific time, people will not go, because teachers have this notebook correction, all those things, so eventually they started focusing on that and it did not work out. Then we had to improve. I explained in front of everybody that this is what I did. It did not work out because this was my fault. Maybe we'll put the system in place, and now it is bearing fruit. So if we start providing from the top, things will start falling in place, people will have that confidence, and then it comes to students. And another very important thing, I feel the best and simplest way is, every child must play sports and games. Game mein aap jeette harte hi ho. You lose games, you will feel bad. But the stakes are not so high. That is very important. Because a lot of times what happens is, when we put the stakes very high, it becomes a big problem. Then ego and all those things start coming into places. But if the stakes are low, especially when you play so many games together, you lose. You feel bad, but still next game you have a possibility of winning, and you start fighting it again. So slowly it gets into you as a habit. And regarding last one, I will say is create a mindset of experimentation. Don't call it a project, call it an experiment. When we say that, people think, अच्छा ठीक है, experiment है तो fail होने से भी कोई बड़ा बात नहीं है, because उनको पता है experiment है तो सही गलत होता रहता है. So when you call these things, because any project that we want to do in any school or any organization, we start with pilot scale, we see how it is working, and then we expand it across. So if you call it as experiments, we are trying to do this, let's see in this class or this with some teachers we try to do it. If it works well, then we will expand others. So these things are helping a lot. The stakes are not very high, so people think, okay, it's all right. If it is called experimentation instead of just any project, they still feel okay, not a big deal. And when the top man and the coordinators, principal, everybody is saying, it's all right to make mistake. We are all humans. And remember one thing, if we want innovation and you are not ready to accept failure, then even God cannot help you.
Right, thank you, Abhishek ji. I remembered when a topic gets over in the class and when the floor opens for question, so at the first instance, you don't see a lot of raised hands. And then the teacher says, come on, no question is stupid, no question is dumb. And then, hands get started, students start raising hands. So that's what, you highlighted, that the encouragement has to come, that it's okay to fail. Mr. Amol, if you would like to share something.
As I was saying, we look at resilience from 3 points. One is the physical, one is the emotional, and one is the cognitive resilience. All three are important. So since I'm opening, we have a chain of about 600 schools, opening about a school every week. So I'm always hiring also as a corporate recruiter also, and I'm also teaching the same students. So I've noticed that millennials have this issue of where they are not clear of what they do. They've come in from a very pampered environment, and instantly I can say this person is younger than 20 or just 25, 23, because he's a millennial in the way he's thinking. Because you try and say, okay, I'll give you a job, but what about, can you manage our social media? Can you do this? I don't know, I think I can you do photography? I mean, can you do? So there is a clear difference between millennials, they're different species altogether. So what I have realized is that I need to go back to the drawing board and correct this. So we look at it first, as everybody's been talking about, creating that culture of allowing teachers to say that it's not you're a topper and you're good or tum nalayak ho. It's accepting that he's not there yet, that kind of environment. Also report cards, since if you're judging children on report cards, then everyone will teach the report card as well. So the report card evaluation policy also has to be changed in terms of the parent-teacher meeting. Okay, when you have a PTM, the scare is parents are scared कि teacher मेरे पे चिल्लाएगी, teacher डर रहा है कि parent मेरे पे चिल्लाएगा. So rather than that, we help them create a structured plan going forward where the child starts taking responsibility as he grows older. So there's those SMART goals that we all talk about, but in terms of what is the child going to do, how does he know that he has reached that? English, spoken English improve karo, kaise karoon? How will I judge that? So he does that. Then as a program, what we have is for physical, we have a health and wellness program where teachers identify signs of stress, because signs of stress in children are different. They start from bedwetting, less sleep, tummy aches, headaches, to helping them make healthier choices and realizing the value of health. Because health hai to sab kuch hai, to kuch nahi hai. Then from the emotional, we have our syllabus is divided into 10 sanskar of the year. So every month we focus on one sanskar. Chapters on that sanskar are taught during that month. So we have a program on sanskar building where they do activities which helps them do reflection and builds their emotional strength. Then for cognitive thinking also, we have a program on thinking skills. They do puzzles, activities which builds their out-of-the-box thinking. So we've looked at very holistically, changed our curriculum and oriented the parents as well. कि जो school में कर रहे हैं, ये आपको support करना है. You can't be on a different tangent altogether. I think that's what we've been doing, and that's what has been working for us.
Right, thank you, Amol ji. Avinash ji, from the starting, our discussion has been focused on, tackling fear of failure and, building academic resilience. But, when we talk about resilience and building that in students, an important aspect is focusing on life skills. And, the teenage years that the students have in their school, they're probably the most vulnerable age that they face. Peer pressure is one of those things, and they get into things that probably they shouldn't be. And here comes the role of value education classes in schools. If you would like to start on the role of value education, Amol ji really elaborated on some of the things, that how they have a monthly curriculum based on some sanskars. It's quite similar to that, but if you could elaborate on the role of value education classes, and especially in tackling peer pressure, because this is something that's really prevalent among the teenage group, especially in schools.
Yeah, the panel talked about the importance of sports. I wish this panel was there 30 years back. I was in class 12. I was playing basketball for India. My father said, son, you have to decide whether you want to continue playing basketball or you want to prepare for engineering entrance examination. And before I could answer, the answer was, obviously. And I decided that, basketball doesn't have anything. So I wish this was there 30 years back. Coming back to value education, or even before that, I think one thing which we should all admit gracefully is that our current education system is lopsided towards academics. हम कहीं चाहे कुछ भी, फर्क सिर्फ पेरेंट्स को भी और स्कूल को भी सिर्फ मार्क्स से ही पड़ता है. Marks is the only parameter which decides what is right or what is wrong, and in fact, to some extent, it holds true for me also as a parent. But I strongly feel that that we should understand and appreciate that time has, apart from academic success, as Colonel just said, that skills like creativity, communication, social skills, emotional skills, leadership skills, these skills are very important for anybody to succeed in 21st century. I would in fact say that these skills are probably much more important than academic skills. Now the question is that what is that we do? We need to integrate them into the academics. And what I feel as a parent is that the only way of integrating them into academics is by tweaking our teaching and testing processes. Instead of, if we in teaching, if we include tools like, group discussions, symposiums, role plays, project work, probably, that can be, we can teach value education also, and we can build resilience among students also. Because as it is rightly said, that students will rise to whatever bar we set for them, high or low. It is for us to decide whether we are setting a high bar or low bar. And the second very, very important ingredient is testing. The very fact that every year there are thousands and thousands of students who are getting 100% marks clearly shows that the assessment system or the testing system is flawed. Students are not getting admissions. Students who have 100% marks are not getting admissions in the colleges they want. It clearly signifies the fact that there's something wrong somewhere. And regarding testing, I would also say that what you test is what is learned. What you test is what is learned, and how you test is how it is learned. अगर हम रट्टे वाली चीज ही पूछेंगे, तो बच्चा रट के ही आएगा. और अगर हाई थिंकिंग ऑर्डर स्किल्स का क्वेश्चन होगा तो हाई ऑर्डर थिंकिंग स्किल्स का ही वो बच्चा उसी तरीके से तैयारी करेगा. इनफैक्ट इफ यू सी इट फ्रॉम ए वेरी माइन्यूट पर्सपेक्टिव, apart from what is the difference between school and coaching institute? Why is that students, decide to go to coaching institute at times at the cost of going to school? Because वहाँ पे teaching और testing दोनों ही बिल्कुल अलग तरीके से हो रहे हैं. तो आपके क्वेश्चन पे डायरेक्टली अगर मैं आऊँगा, वैल्यू एजुकेशन आई थिंक इज इम्पॉर्टेंट in the sense that it provides students a kind of framework to कि क्या सही है, क्या गलत है, कैसे चीज़ों को एनालाइज करना है, कैसे हम सही डिसीजन पे पहुँचे. इट इज़ a kind of tool box. It provides a kind of, it provides a kind of framework for students to decide that what is that they should do in any set of situation. Regarding peer pressure, you just said, I think that mobile phone is one which kind of creates a peer pressure. When you compare yourself with the help of a mobile phone, at the click of the mouse, at the click of a button, you compare yourself not with the students in your class or school or city, but students, unreasonable comparison happens. You start comparing yourself with somebody sitting outside the country also. So that is where peer pressure suddenly starts building in, when you compare your real life with somebody else's real life. That is what is the cause of peer pressure.
Right. Thank you, Avinash ji. We have 4 minutes before we'll open the floor for questions. Abhishek ji, your quick comments on this. I remember in 2012, I was in class 9th, and that was the first year when my school started having a dedicated counseling room for students. So, and the influx of students that happened right after opening it, it showed that, they were dealing with some mental stress or some peer pressure. If you could elaborate more on it.
See, first thing, the most useless class in any school is the moral science class. There is no use. Reality is that. Values are not taught, they are practiced. And it has to start again from the top. If you espouse norms and enacted norms, if they are same, then only it can be done. And of course, as he said, integrated across the subject. Across the subject, it has to be integrated. The top man has to do it, or the woman has to do it. The principal, the teachers, everybody has to do it. Children never learn by what is being told to them. They learn by what they observe the teachers and the elders do. That is very, very important. And it is also important to work with parents. A lot of times what is happening, because during their schools, they spend around 6.5 hours in the school, and they almost spend same time at home also, the active hours. So if they are not in concurrence, a lot of times they can get confused. A lot of times children don't know which one to follow, which one not to follow. So integrate in the curriculum system different things, so that by practicing, I said example like resilience, or fear of failure, how you want to inculcate in students. Let them play games. Let them fail, allow them to fail. If you want to teach somebody how to spend money properly, you have to give them money. Without that, nobody will learn. If you want to want children to learn about how to deal with foreign students, understand their cultures, they have to meet those students. Experience what is it like to be there. So all those things, it is just only experiential learning. That is only way which we can expect children to develop these kind of skills. And not only that, it will not happen in a day. That also we have to understand. Because without a doubt, we are all bundle of habits, which works automatically for us. So we have to consistently keep developing these things. As a school, if the culture is very clear, the vision is clear, and we keep following, over a period of time, people will develop. And it is during schooling only these kind of things are developed. After that, what happens when they attain the teenage? That is the most vulnerable stage, because you are high on adrenaline, but low on brains. That is what is the challenge. So children have a lot of difficulty with full energy and a lot of peer pressure. Counseling is important. That is very, very important, the way it is being done. Challenge is that, reality, I will tell you, you were lucky that so many people in 2012 went to counseling room. Because even now we all know it is a lot of times a big taboo to go to the counseling room. online, one thing it has done well, because we had called recently one counselor from IIT Kharagpur to speak to our students about how to reduce mobile phone and all those things. And she said, even now children are not interested to come here. But because of this online, what has happened, they are saying, can we have online counseling so that nobody will know I have come to you? My friends will not say anything. That taboo is still there. With parents also it is there. We have to talk them. They say, no, मेरा बेटा तो कुछ अच्छा है. एकदम घर में तो कोई problem नहीं होता है. आप ही के यहाँ की problem हो जाता है. But that taboo is there. We have to, how to remove that taboo? Consistently keep speaking about it, that it is all right, it is all right. Let the top man always set examples, the principal, the teachers, that we also have issues, but we are ready to accept it. So when you see somebody you idolize, let's say Virat Kohli or some big star, that they also come up and say that we also have mental issues, but now we are fighting and getting all right. So that gives a lot of confidence to us. So I think these things, if you put all together, certainly I think it should work well.
Right. Thank you, Abhishek ji. Kanak ji, your quick comments on this, and we'll open the floor for questions.
Sure. So I think, ultimately you'll have to put your hand on your heart and ask yourself, are you a learning organization? If you are a learning organization, a lot of problems get taken care of. The teacher knows a lot, but teacher is not the end all and know all in the system anymore. Because, we can talk about flipped classrooms, we can talk about case studies, but the student also has access to information. There has to be more application in the classroom. There has to be more discussion. There has to be more empathy in the classroom. We believe in, the three pillars that drive our system is Ruchi, Yogita, Vishwas. Like, what is the student interested in? What does the student have capability in? And, the confidence that we give to the student that no matter what, the school is going to support all your endeavors. So that is something you need to look at. Are you a learning organization? Invest in your people, invest in your students. Look at a holistic sort of development of the child.
Right. Thank you, Kanak ji. We'll open the floor for questions now.
Very, very fruitful this session is. Congratulations to all of you. बहुत अच्छा लगा सुनने के बाद. Resilience बहुत अच्छी चीज़ है. पूरी लाइफ हमारे को उसकी ज़रूरत होती है. अगर हम resilient हो जाएं तो शायद failure की ज़रूरत ना पड़े. एक क्वेश्चन है मेरे को अविनाश जी से. उन्होंने कहा कि failure is a mind of state. It is true, sir. We know almost that this is the mind of a state. कुदरत ने सिर्फ दो डर देकर पैदा किया है, एक ऊंचाई का और एक इमीडिएट साउंड का. लेकिन ऐसी क्या वजह है कि हर जगह हम डरते हैं और इस डर का समाधान क्या है, प्लीज़ ये बताएं. थैंक यू.
एज पेरेंट्स अगर हम देखें, जब मैं बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट से बात करता हूँ, तो एज पेरेंट्स अगर हम देखें तो बहुत सारे जो स्टूडेंट्स होते हैं सबके पास ढेरों लिमिटिंग बिलीफ होती हैं. वो लिमिटिंग बिलीफ वो लिमिटिंग बिलीफ वो स्टोरीज होती हैं जो हम अपने माइंड को बताते हैं अपने एक्शंस को जस्टिफाई करने के लिए. मैं सुबह नहीं उठ सकता, मैं मोबाइल नहीं छोड़ सकता, मेरे पापा में मुझे मार्क्स प्यार नहीं करते, उन्हें सिर्फ मार्क्स की चिंता है, नोबडी लव्स मी, नोबडी लाइक्स मी. And but the good part is that in spite of the fact that, most of these students have limiting beliefs, these limiting beliefs can be bulldozed. There is a certain process which you follow. So अगर ये limiting beliefs अगर हम bulldoze कर दें कि मुझसे कोई प्यार नहीं करता या मेरे माता पिता, मैं नहीं समझता कोई माता पिता ऐसा हो सकता है जो सिर्फ बच्चे को मार्क्स से ही प्यार करे या उसका प्यार मार्क्स के प्रोपोर्शन हो, मैं नहीं समझता. और बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट से मैंने जब बात की तो ऐसा निकल के आता है. तो ये लिमिटिंग बिलीफ्स अगर हम बुलडोज कर दें बच्चों की, तो फियर ऑफ फेलियर या फेलियर, वो जो फियर है वो कम हो सकता है. दूसरी चीज़ अगर हम देखें, दूसरे नज़रिए से देखें, फियर एक बहुत पॉजिटिव इमोशन है. फियर मुझे भी था, फियर मुझे भी लगता है. मैं जब बच्चों के बहुत बड़े ग्रुप के साथ बात करता हूँ, मैंने बहुत ज़्यादा पैनल डिस्कशंस नहीं किए हैं, ये तीसरा या चौथा पैनल डिस्कशन होगा, मुझे भी डर लग रहा था कि मैं क्या बोलूँगा, कैसे बोलूँगा. इन स्पाइट ऑफ द फैक्ट दैट आई प्रोवाइड मेंटरशिप टू मोर देन 20,000 स्टूडेंट्स अक्रॉस द कंट्री. मुझे भी डर था कि मुझसे क्या पूछा जाएगा. फियर जरूरी है, एक पॉजिटिव इमोशन है, उसको हमें पॉजिटिविटी के साथ हमें देखना है. एज पेरेंट्स अगर हम देखें तो हम घर में किस तरीके की बोलचाल कर रहे हैं. एक टॉपर के घर में गया, भोपाल में रहता है, तो ऐसा कुछ नहीं था, पेरेंट्स बिल्कुल ऑर्डिनरी हैं, पर घर के माहौल के अंदर एक एनर्जी थी, एक एक्साइटमेंट था, एक वेव, वो एक अलग ही, उस वेव की फ्रीक्वेंसी ही अलग थी, मुझे नहीं पता क्या था, बट पॉजिटिविटी की एनर्जी पैदा हो रही थी. तो हम किस तरीके से अपने बच्चों से बात कर रहे हैं, आपस में घर में टोन किस में बात कर रहे हैं, आप अपने बच्चों के साथ क्या प्रोग्राम देखते हैं, क्या OTT पे नेटफ्लिक्स पे क्राइम थ्रिलर देख रहे हैं या अमेजॉन पे शार्क टैंक देख रहे हैं? अगर शार्क टैंक देख रहे हैं तो फेलियर का मतलब उन्हें अपने आप ही समझ में आ जाएगा, किस तरीके की बोलचाल है, किस तरीके से हम आपस में बात कर रहे हैं। ये सब बच्चे की लिमिटिंग बिलीफ बनाने में और उस फियर को कैसे हैंडल करना, उसमें बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट रोल प्ले करता है।
Well, I consider the panelists over here as academicians because, truly speaking, this question came to my mind from the last, discussion which happened. Professor Sharma referred about non-actionability of the research, papers, the doctoral papers, which are, the doctorates which have been allocated. Yeah, it's a huge challenge for us that we have seen that PhDs have been, provided, but the research papers, the dissertation papers, they are kept at stacks or maybe in the archives. Similarly with IPs also. Our IP institutions are providing so many IPs, but we don't find technologies being in the market based on those IPs. My sole question to the academicians across, to the panel and over here, why can't the findings of the research which are being accredited with PhDs be the starting point, ideation point for the startups? If that is not happening, that means at the back end, if you look at the value chain, at the back end, surely there was some challenge, some issue that wasn't actionable. And if it is happening, definitely the research was in the line, and in due course, it's going to hit the market. So I just wanted to know, what are the techno-commercial challenges if that is being put forward as a culture in academics, not just discrete initiatives? Number one. Number two, on resilience. In the school level only, why can't we have a session, maybe a class, wherein we share the stories of late successes? People who got late successes, because a lot of things are coming when somebody has late success. If somebody is not succeeding within 20 years, he's not a failure. But in schools, that becomes one of the points. If he's not succeeding within 16 years, it's a failure. So if we just bring forward those stories, life stories of Colonel Sanders, the writer of Harry Potter, and then in that class, if we just come up with 5 life points, 10 life points, and state what is the situation, what were the options, and how he proceeded.
So I think the first question, I saw Abhishek ji picking up the mic, but I don't know if it was appropriate for this panel, because I think it was more of related to higher education, and we have the panelists. If you would like to answer?
I come from the school background, but I'll just try to answer because I graduated from IIT and I know how they are working as the PhDs that are being produced, all those things. There's a huge difference between a person who's doing a PhD and who's doing a startup. The startup person is trying to solve a problem. PhD just wants to get a degree. That is why it cannot be translated into this thing. What Sir was saying was same thing. Sir very rightly said that there should be interaction between industry and academia. The challenge, sadly, in higher education is what I will tell you. People join as assistant professors or lecturers. There is a requirement, minimum number of PhDs, minimum number of papers. You go up the value chain until you become professors and HAGs. Sadly, they don't look beyond that. So that is the main reason, sir. Unless you do that, I think it may not come. So beyond this, I think I will not answer. Just let me, sir. Another one is that teaching, giving examples of, the late failures, all those things, that I think a lot of schools are doing, sir. Because we are calling experts from outside to come and speak. And when they come and speak, one important aspect we always want them to highlight is that highlight your failures. Now you're successful, everybody knows. You have become IAS or Navy, some big thing, or you have done something great. Highlight your failures. So that way students will get confidence. That is what I would say, sir. Yes, sir.
I think I'll take it beyond that, not just the obvious stories of Colonel Sanders, but even children in everyday lives, they can be asked to self-reflect, share with the classroom what their failures are. Parents can come, experts can come, and even from what we do in the questions that are there in, suppose, an English story, they also teach a lot of things. So we can pick up, while choosing books, we look at those concepts of what kind of questioning is there in the book at the end of the day. Are they forcing children to think on the higher order things? So I think schools are already doing it at different levels, calling experts. There are those stories, and But there's also the fact that our timetables are very crammed in terms of having to finish the syllabus in this much time. If our syllabus finish नहीं होगा, parents आगे चिल्लाएंगे. So we have limited time in our syllabus, but we still are trying to figure out and create spaces in a timetable to allow this kind of discussion and ultimately internal reflection among students.
I just wanted to add value to what Mr. Abhishek Kumar was talking about. You're absolutely right. See, I wanted to add value to this point. Why? Because what's happening in India now is very beautiful is every single school, and this is genuinely happening. Maybe about 40 years back, we did not know things about what is plagiarism or why a research paper, you cannot copy paste somebody else's work. But schools are genuinely conscious about the fact that what research actually means. See, our Indian government has taken the initiative now, as IB boards or Cambridge boards were doing in India many years back. ICSE, State Board, and CBSE, all of them have taken the same initiative that the first thing is to educate teachers on what is plagiarism. Because as a country, and this is something that's happening at school level, I'm not talking even about college. See, when we're doing research, research-based teacher training is part of NEP 2020. That means that the teachers have to actually have a research-minded element. You cannot just get a bachelor's of education anymore the way it used to be. So to add value to the point, in the K-12 industry also, there is an amazing alignment that's happening from K-12 going into, it's a proper agile alignment from K2 to higher ed. The logic is that the child is developing research-based education and at the same time is understanding how to research and why to research. So just to answer the gentleman, I wanted to add a point to your point that research-based mindset is developed in the child right from an early age in our K-12 system. And this is something that pan-India consciously we are witnessing across all schools, and they're all putting in the effort.
I would differ. You still have to stick to the NCRT definition to the marks cut jayenge exam mein.
See, NCRT, if you have read the NEP document,
it's fine, but at the end of the day, the exam that every parent wants.
That is why on the index in the world, there are 150 countries. This year, India is at 147 in education and happiness. Yes. You know why? Number one is Finland. Because for the last 5 years, the education system is number one.
Waiting for that word to come.
Education system has been the number one for a reason. See, marks cut jayenge, this mentality where parent A goes to parent B and says, okay, you got to get 97%, right? I wanted to make a point before also. Parent as co-teachers is a very, very important factor right now. We need to sensitize the parents to understand, to make them understand their value in the child's life. You cannot do surrogate parenting. When for 2 years you were in the lockdown, millennial parents you were talking about, where could you move out? That's the 2 years where the parents actually realize what it means to be a parent. Till that, we were doing surrogate parenting. Any upper middle class or middle class parent in this country would send the kid, now horse riding, now tuition A, now tuition B, now swimming, now this, now that. Till 8 p.m. in the night, the kid will come back. Where is the parent? I want to spend quality time for 15 minutes with the child. So what we need to understand is, when the government is looking at, and of course private entities in the country are looking at marks cut jayenge, your point is right. I'm not absolutely saying that that's not a problem. That is a social, cultural stigma that our country is carrying. Because for the last 100 years, when we were ruled by the colonial empire, what was the reason that we were always trained as clerks? Because we were only supposed to do a certain amount of work. We were not trained as leaders. When the NEP was written in 1968 for the first time, and the second change happened in 2020, why did the government realize? All of us are talking on the same point. The brain drain is happening because of that particular reason.
Right. You know, my daughter just went to the American university, and she didn't get into a university that she aspired. She got through a good university. And my son, who's younger, has started to study hard. That doesn't mean he doesn't play soccer, doesn't mean he plays video games. But let me be honest, even in the American system, academic excellence and overall excellence don't necessarily need to be detached from each other. Marks are, top universities looks at marks, right? So let's not say marks don't matter, It's like, it is, Second, yes, the best school is home. What children learn at their home is important. It supplements, reinforces. And somebody I admire a lot, Lakshmi Goyal, he set up the Sun City World School. He said this to me 10, 12 years back, and he's a close family friend. And I've been reflecting on it since then, and it's true. And third, children have a lot of, my daughter is 18, she'll be 18 in 6 days. She has a lot of exposure. She knows much more than what I knew at 18. I mean, at least 5 years ahead. They've read about failure, they know what they want to do. And there is a support system, there are counselors. She joined a Thai business plan competition at 14. So, I think kids know by and large what's happening. It's about overall society is moving in a certain direction, so children will also move in that direction. So we can talk ideal things about education, happiness, and let me also say this, that in most American studies or World Bank studies, which is funded by America, the way the studies are in any, whether it's ease of doing business. By the way, me and Avinash are very close friends and batchmates from MDI. He motivated me to fight an election. I was sitting in his room and I lost by 1 vote. So I don't know, I should blame him or anybody else. But fact is, another batchmate of ours does these studies. All these studies of where is India placed are skewed against India. And I'm not a jingoist nationalist. I'm a very liberal kind of person. So I'm not saying it because I have to say it because I have to look good with the government. So most of these studies, in the way they are structured, do not play to the strengths of this country. Let me say this, having some knowledge of this domain. So I think academic debates are good. Debate is always good, but you cannot detach what is happening on the ground and what is needed to be successful.
For example, memorization is a skill which they don't consider, and it's a very good muscle that Indians have. When we go abroad and do higher ed over there, we actually have an advantage because they are using calculators all the time. So we are able to come up with and make decisions much better because we have memory, which has been built over. So we don't consider those on this kind of.
Absolutely. So I think, our education system is good. Yes, in terms of quality of teachers, how much we pay teachers, what is the kind of people we're attracting in our educational institutions, not just the IIMs and ITs, but below that. Why are people, somebody has to go into education because he or she enjoys being a teacher. My father studied at BITS Pilani. He chose to be a professor. Avinash's dad is a celebrated author and, academician. When we were young, we read his dad's book, IIT Guide by Dr. O.P. Agarwal. I still didn't make it to IIT again. I don't know whether to blame you or your dad, but, I don't think we should be academic about every discussion. We have to take the practicalities. And we should, I think, with the new education policy, what's happening in the environment, digital, children know so much. All we have to make sure that their values are right and they're loved. Rest they'll figure out.
Right.
So one important point, I think what he said, Mr. Anurag was right. I think at school, teachers are the parents, and at home, parents are the teachers. This is very important that parents must know. And I think a lot of focus we are giving on how to teach students. But one important aspect, how to be a good parent, that is not being severely missed. A lot of times, yes, because
nobody thinks they need to learn that. वो तो हम भी जब पल पल गए हैं ना, तो जरूरत नहीं है.
What happens is, we a lot of times don't understand the impact of our actions can have on kids. Because no parent wants bad for the children. There is no doubt in that. That is, yeah. Correct. Yes, that is what I'm trying to say. Sir, what I'm trying to say is that only key.
Let's teach the CEOs how to behave. Then we talk to.
Yes, everything, sir, let's understand one thing. CEO's responsibility is not to raise you. But as a parent, our responsibility is to raise our children.
Parent learns from the.
If you are taking wrong examples, that's your problem. You don't have to learn everything that your CEO does. It's up to you. So,
it's not a question of
this is a larger debate about leadership. Are the leaders getting dwarfer? That's another debate, political and all. I think.
1 second.
But as a parent,
Where does
your
the parent get
responsibility
the
is with
reward
kids.
from?
There is no doubt
I
about
want
it.
to ask this. I think I know Avinash's view, though I meet him once or twice a year. Last time I met him in December last year. And I want to know about your views on edutech. Is the quality of what people are getting in edutech, even in the K-12, which you represent, Mr. Arora, you have a very large influence in terms of numbers that you cater to. Is the quality of edutech really making an impact? Is it valuable? And I saw Mr. Yadav, you were very candid in your response. So I would want everyone to be candid and not, there is a reason I'm asking that. So we can start with Mr. Arora.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Anurag. I think it's been overhyped, oversold, but there is definitely a value to it. And teachers who can use that tool, it can become a superpower in their hands, in hands of a good human being. But the way it's being sold as a replacement for teaching, replacement for schools is clearly not the case going forward. So it's been done for 20 years, and the reason why we schools invest in it has two purposes. One, it has a clear impact on their student outcomes. Second, it has a marketing value also. हमारे यहाँ smart class लगा हुआ है. So there's a ROI to that. As an educator, I need to think of ROI. I decide on ROI. So do I see a marketing benefit, which is a smart class, or do I see an actual learning benefit? The problem is, EdTech is sold with a lot of hype. This changes everything. And that hype goes so much, and people teachers and educators don't understand technology. Either they get scared, or they get, oh, we have to do this to catch up with them. And thanks for sharing that. Okay. So it works for highly motivated children, and children who don't have access. It has a very good role there. Children who have to be self-motivated, then it works beautifully.
I'll share a different perspective. If you talk about, so-called edtech companies which have become unicorn, I strongly feel that their concentration at this point of time is not towards providing value to the customer. They are only focused about valuation. So unless and until the focus comes back to value to the customer, which unfortunately is miles away. Now, talking about अलग-अलग तरीके के students हैं, अलग-अलग spectrum में पढ़ रहे हैं, based on how the market is responding post-COVID. What I have seen is that most of the school-going students who were studying till class 12th, they are back to the offline thing because they can't concentrate, questions like my son was studying with one of these classes. He said कि एक class में हजारों बच्चे होते हैं, आप डाउट नहीं पूछ सकते, कॉन्सेंट्रेट नहीं कर सकते, डाउट इकट्ठे होते चले जाते हैं. So most of 80 to 90% of the market till class 12th, wherein students need little bit of guidance, monitoring, discipline, and little bit of motivation, is according to me back offline, and that I'm speaking from by the number of admissions which these offline coaching centers have. But there is a different scenario when it comes to students who are preparing for different competitive examinations like banking, SSC, railway defense, and UPSC. There, where students are responsible themselves, I think EdTech is having a lead over offline coaching center by the very fact that one teacher can teach X number of students sitting at one location. और इसके अलावा मुझे ये भी लगता है कि जो एडटेक कंपनीज हैं उनका फोकस, सारी टेक्नोलॉजी कंपनीज एडटेक कंपनीज बन गई हैं, कोई एजुकेशन कंपनी एडटेक कंपनी अनफॉर्चुनेटली नहीं बन पाई है. तो उनका जो लिवर ऑफ मोनेटाइजेशन है वो टेक्नोलॉजी ड्रिवन है रेदर देन एजुकेशन ड्रिवन. That's what I'm saying, that they are basically, it is the technology which is driving. It is not like people like Amol and academicians are not nowhere. These are all techies which are.
So I think I'm very sorry, I request you to please keep it extremely short because मुझे यहाँ इसलिए भेजा जाता है कि
ठीक है, गौतम है, आप खड़े हो जाओ, पता चल जाएगा सर. ठीक है. I think it is certainly overhyped. There is no doubt in that. K to 12, I think it's a big damage to the students. First, because I think they are not so much focused, so it creates a lot of digital junk actually goes into the system. When kids come and say they are studying, watching YouTube videos, I know they are not studying. This is what is happening. So that way, it is having a severe loss to this thing. Higher up, yes, it has great value chain, but just one discussion I will share with you. I had a few days back with Professor Rajiv Mal. He's from Department of Computer Science Engineering, IT Kharagpur. So we're discussing about the quality of students that are coming and that imaginative power, that new things that they can think of, that is not there. And he's talking about computer science students, imagine, who are the brightest who are getting that, right? The challenge is that because when you bring in technology, there's a smart classes, a lot of videos and all those things are coming. Like Mr. Amol has huge number of schools. So now he has to maintain a minimum standard in a classroom. For that, it will be good because you have at least that technology is there to provide some level of content. And you may not get equal quality teachers everywhere. So that way it is good. But you have to reach excellence, then I think this is a challenge it becomes. That is where you will need actually the teachers to be there. And K to 12, another thing what Mr. Avinash told very rightly was that children just don't learn the subject. They learn based on the liking of the teacher. Many of the time, it is, I like that teacher, that is why I like that subject. So that where it has a huge impact on the learning of children. So I generally discourage children to stay away from that. I mean, encourage them to stay away from it.
Anuragji, I request you to organize another BW education with just this topic, because it's an absolute mammoth discussion that we can have on this. I don't believe in throwing the baby with the bathwater. I genuinely believe that technology has a value add. I genuinely believe that technology is an enabler. Ultimately, it'll be teachers who use technology well will replace teachers who do not know how to use technology, because that's the hygiene factor across the world. Having said that, a lot of the edtech platforms, which started off as teaching learning material and assistance to the teachers, have transformed into valuation companies. That is where the problem is. I think we need to have more educators driving the edtech platforms rather than technology driving the edtech platforms alone. As of now, I can stick my neck out and say that I don't like any of the edtech platforms. Nothing is adding value except for the fact that it's shine and glasses and mirrors for everyone. So we will need to change that. As a fraternity, we'll need to provide more substance to the edtech platforms.
Right. We had this panel. We decided to keep it light. That's why we chose this topic. But towards the end, we drifted back towards academics. And as Kanak ji said, we'll surely have a separate panel discussion in the next summit. One full event. Okay. Thank you so much, panelists, for your time this afternoon and for this insightful discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, can we please have a big round of applause for all of our panelists?